You're listening to Lemon's Listening Library. Discover the story behind the stories with unique and raw conversations from the people who make your favorite books a reality. Welcome to Lemon's Listening Library. I'm Randy Lemons, fantasy author, or RL Rose to those of you in the romance community, and today I am joined by Kathy. Kathy, would you like to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Good morning, I'm Kathy Ireland, and I am an avid audiobook listener. That's how I consume most of my books. I also do audiobook production, so that's been a fun and exciting addition to my book world existence. So yeah, that's about me.
All right, before we introduce our guest today, I do want to do just a little bit of housekeeping. If you guys are interested in having your services on our show or announced on the podcast or announced within our social medias, head over to our Patreon account and check that out. It's a great way to support the show and get your services out there. So now, the moment you've all been waiting for, we are super excited about our guest today. Caitlin, will you introduce yourself and kind of tell our guest a little bit about you?
Hi, I'm Caitlin. I am a contemporary romance author, self-published, and I dabble in young adult. I'm sort of transitioning to new adult romance, and I'm also a YouTuber, a small YouTuber, but it's growing. And I also do adaptive sports and am the chairperson for the Tri-State Wheelchair Athletic Association and a motivational speaker. I think that covers everything. Yes.
That's amazing.
All the headliners,
Yeah.
yep.
Trying to remember everything.
So I love that what got you into writing and storytelling was High School Musical.
Yes. So, I mean, it did start before that, but it really got bad when High School Musical came out because when High School Musical, it was supposed to be just another normal, regular DCOM, and because I was always a fan of Disney Channel original movies, so I was looking forward to the new one. It was supposed to be a little movie, just a small movie, and then it became a huge phenomenon, and it sort of changed my life because I became kind of obsessed. If you ask my friends and my family, I sort of became a little obsessed with High School Musical, and it sort of branched out to my creative side. This is how obsessed I was. I had a MySpace fan page, I had a YouTube fan page, and I had my family buying me anything they could find at Christmas time or my birthday, High School Musical related, and I just got hooked. It's more the love story between Troy and Gabriella, and the real life story at the time of Zac Efron and Vanessa Hudgens that really got me, and so I used them as my muse for writing romance.
Yeah, I was never like really hardcore into it, but oh my gosh, that was such a beautiful story, and that was the first time I'd ever really watched a musical that was like,
me too.
Okay, this is an actual story and it's great.
Yeah, I think my first introduction to musicals was Grease because of my sister, because she's 10 years older than me.
That's fair.
But I'm like, I liked it back then. It was cool. But then when High School Musical came out, I'm like, sorry, Grease, you're out. Even though High School Musical is kind of like a Disney-fied version of Grease, and they say that, and it actually was supposed to be Grease 2 back in the day, but
Oh wow.
High School Musical is better. I'm sorry. It's so much better.
I think that High School Musical, it was more of a relatable,
Yes,
like super, realistic possible story. Whereas Grease was the, kind of fantasized love story between the guy from the wrong side of the tracks, and he was the, the bad boy, and then the good girl, So, I mean, I think that was super idealized and not as attainable. But High School Musical was more, I mean, it happens in high school. You have the jock and, so I think I love that story too. I thought it was good.
Now, did you write fan fiction for that, or did you read fan fiction for that?
Both. So I wrote and read. The first I did was when I had the MySpace fan page. I saw other fan pages do like videos, and then they did like video story kind of style. So I then moved to YouTube and started doing that, but I was like getting really tired of. It took a lot to do the clips, the videos, the things. So I'm like, let me try fan fiction, actually just writing it. And then so I did start writing fan fiction. I think I did do one on MySpace, but then I moved on to an actual fan fiction website, and then when I started writing, I then started reading, and then it just became High School Musical more obsession because of all the fan fiction out there for Troy and Gabriella. And I only read Troy and Gabriella. I didn't read the whole Troy and Sharpay stuff because that was unnecessary.
Yeah. Well, I think with fan fiction we get our ship and then that's the one we jump on, right? I love that it's called ship because we just jump on that ship.
We
Like
do.
everyone else has sailed, we're on that ship. We've committed.
Yes. Yeah. Sure.
And it's like a Titanic type of ship. We will go down with that.
Yep. Yep, we are captains in the ship. We are going down with
Oh
it.
yes. Oh yes.
That is awesome. I love that is because here's the thing with like, young girls and boys that when they're passionate about something and they love it, they just, their fantasies and their writing and their commitment to it is just all in. And what a great way to have that first experience with writing.
Yeah, it was. I never told anyone like that I personally knew that I did fan fiction, but getting the feedback from other fan fiction writers and fan fiction readers, that was also super helpful. And it was just a great community. And I still go back on that site every once in a while to see how the other writers are doing. It slowed down a little because Troy and Gabriella's sort of slowed down. But they're still out there, and the community is still supportive of everyone. Like I always go back to let them know that the books are now in book form, and well, I have to always go back to take that off fan fiction because of like copywriting stuff, and I get some people upset with me because I'm taking away their Troy and Gabriella. Then I'm like, I have to do what I have to do. So, but you get it in a book form now, so it's a win-win.
Well, yeah, and I don't know if you know the Dramoni fan fiction side, but there's a big time fan fiction girl who did a book called Manacle, and she's pulling it off because she wrote it into a book, and oh my gosh, people are so upset about that.
Yeah, they were like, isn't there a way you could keep it the Troy and Gabrielle? And I'm like, no, I'm giving you till this date to read it one more time, and then I'm taking it off. I'm sorry, I have to do what I have to
Yeah.
do. And I remember the first time I did it, someone then commented, I thought you said you were putting it back. And I reread my author's note, and I'm like, nowhere does it say that I was putting it back. I said I was putting it into a book. Sorry.
Yeah.
They,
Yeah.
Maybe they
Go buy
just
the book.
they get
yeah.
serious about their fan fiction reads. I'm like, and I'm about to have to do it again. I'm not ready to do it, but I'm gonna have to.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like there's like no way to really, prepare the fans for that, your readers for that. Even if you put it in the beginning and you're like, hey, just letting you know, eventually this is going to turn into a book, they're still going to be devastated when it's gone. Like, there's just not really any softening the blow.
No, and I get it, because I was the same way when one of my favorite High School Musical fan fiction stories left fan fiction, but I completely understood it. I didn't like Attacker.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little extreme.
Yeah, and when they're not writers, it's hard for them to understand. They're like, we're readers, we consume it. We don't understand that there is this process for a lot of writers. I mean, I'm getting surprised by how many we talk to that start off in fan fiction and then that turns into a book and they just change, the core canon stuff. And that's a great way to do it because you already have sort of a base following, and then some of them will transfer over. But they just don't understand. They're like, I love this story. They don't understand the process of writing and turning it into a book. So, my heart goes out to them.
Mine does too. I mean, I don't want to break your guys' hearts, but I gotta.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So,
awesome.
kind of tell us a little bit about with like the writing and stuff like that. Did you have your spinal cord injury very young? Was that also something that helped with like having an outlet?
So I had my spinal cord injury when I was 3, 4 years old. So I don't really remember anything without the disability. Um, so it does help the writing as well because I want to incorporate disability into it. Not as the main focus, which a lot of people assume that it has to be the main focus, but um, but just to have characters with disabilities overall. I mean, the current books I have now don't necessarily have that because it didn't really fit with the story. But even if one day down the line someone wants to like adapt it for some other reason, it could easily be a disabled character. They could easily turn one of the best friends into a disabled character. But it has helped with my writing and had not. But I mean, because of the spinal cord injury, I've had experiences with adaptive sports. So like with that, I was able to go see other states and then meet other people to get their personalities, which then helps out through the writing and the characterizations of the characters and setting and all of that. So yeah, I guess it does help.
Yeah.
Can
Yeah, well,
you?
I mean, and I think life in general kind of helps with that, right? Like if you're a writer and you go experience other world or not worlds, go experience other states and go meet other people, then you do get a broader perspective of like behaviors and traits and personalities. And I'm sorry, but a lot of times as authors, people around us get written into our books one way or
Oh
another.
yes. Oh they do. Oh they definitely do.
Yep. Kathy
Hey,
is
Kate,
one of the characters in my new book, and no, I'm just kidding.
I'd be so excited to read that. I'd be like, now you have to do it, Randy.
No, I think that would be really cool though, and I think that if well, I don't know, if someone wrote about me and they told me, I would definitely want to read about it, but if it was
I
just a small inspiration and then the character was completely different, then it'd be like, eh.
Hey, Caitlin, can you explain to our listeners what exactly adaptive sports is?
yes. So adapt in in short terms, it's basically sports for the disabled community. Um, that's pretty much the simple terms. And
And how are you involved in that? Like what? Like exactly?
so after I had my spinal cord injury when I was officially paralyzed when I was 4 years old due to many complications and surgeries. But I still had a lot, a lot of energy. Like my parents didn't know what to do with me. So when I was going to physical therapy, one of the physical therapists happened to be a coach on that hospital's track and field team at the time. It was just track and field. And she was like, have you thought about sports? And then we met with the head coach. And I remember the first time doing sports with, I guess, you don't really try out for adaptive sports, but this was, to me, it was a tryout because they had me racing the hallways at one of my therapy appointments. To me, it was a tryout. I don't know. I know it really wasn't. Now that I am older. I'm like, oh no, they just did it just to do it. And I was 5 years old, so I've been doing it very long time now. And so I started out with just track and field, and then other sports got incorporated. And so then in 2006, when I needed more sports to do, because they were very specific on how many sports to get to nationals, and I wasn't qualifying for all the track events because track and I were not friends. And you can
I'm right there with
you can
though.
ask my coaches, ask my teammates, ask my friend. Track and I, no, it was just not. So I wasn't necessarily getting. I believe we needed six. So then my coach was like, try table tennis. So I tried. So I started doing table tennis. And then in 2010, my mom actually became the archery coach for the team because we needed more archers. So then so I was like, all right, I'll do archery too. So I started doing archery. And then before archery, I did dabble in fencing, adaptive fencing, and for a couple years, and then things happened that it ended. It's not complicated, but it's just wasn't my choice. Wasn't my parents' choice. Let's just leave it at that. And then and then there's an age limit to junior sports. So at 22, I aged out of my junior sports team, but I still did adaptive sports. But when I aged out, I told track goodbye. I was done. Track, I was done. Everyone knew it. I'm like celebrating. I have pictures of me celebrating that I was done with track. Um, it was just we got a divorce in 2015. That's what I said. I'm like, yes, divorce is official. Because I only stuck with track.
Abusive.
Yeah, I only stuck with track to do the 100 meter so I could do the relay because I was a very team person and I wanted to do the relay. I love starting the relay for the team, so I only stuck with it that long. Should not have.
Do you still do that now? Do you still do the adaptive sports?
I do. I am on like a. I haven't done it in 2 3 years because I actually injured my shoulder 2 years ago, and needed shoulder surgery. But this year I just got back to archery. I am in no way, shape, or form competitive ready. But I'm hoping I'll get back to competition next year, especially field. Field, I feel like, because I do shot put, discus, and javelin, I feel like I could probably go back to doing that. But I wanted to take an extra year just to be sure. And then also, I am the chairperson of the Tri-State Wheelchair Athletic Association, where we support different adaptive sporting programs in the tri-state area, but now it grew from, it's basically the Northeast now, not just the three tri-state states. And I've been a part of the board since 2017 because the chairperson at the time was like, we need you. I'm like, do I really? I'm like, yeah, we need you. And then 2020, they needed a chairperson, and I and I raised my hand, and ever since then, it's a lot of work, but it's important work. So I have to remind myself why I'm doing it. I'm giving back to the people that helped shape who I am. Because I will always say, without adaptive sports, I don't know who I would be right now because of the independence, the social with all my friends and teammates and competitors, officials and coaches, and yeah, so that's everything.
Yeah. That's cool. So you don't really you write contemporary. I was gonna say if you wrote fantasy, girl, you've got your archery, you've got your fencing, you've got all of the escape tactics to get away from people. Like I'm there for whenever you switch into fantasy.
I thought of that, like with all the things I've done, it'd be. I would have to think about it. Maybe.
Just an idea. I'm a fantasy girly, so as soon as you started saying that, I was like, oh my god, I bet the detail that you could put into writing about someone who is, archery, an archerist.
Archer.
Yeah, archer.
It's
I
fine.
also like to make up words.
I mean, we're authors. We're allowed to do that. I keep telling it
Yeah.
every time I say a word and people are looking at me. They're like, "That's not a word." I'm like, "Yes, it is. In my mind, it's a word." Leave.
Even though there's already a word that says exactly what I
There
was
should
trying to
be like
say.
an author dictionary and the regular dictionary. Here's the author dictionary.
Yes,
Oh gosh, that would be
that
huge.
would be huge.
Let's see. Refresh on your page, Kathy, before we move on. Okay, we'll wait for you. You're good. Technical difficulties. I love it.
Yeah, it's because during my YouTube stuff, it's just and because I have a light fixture that I bought specifically for my room for YouTubing, and Wednesday it broke, and I was like,
Yeah.
"What?" Like the thing that clamps on for the light to get on the tripod, it broke, and
Oh,
I'm like, wait, no, 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 no. I have to record today, and I have this on Saturday. We are not doing this. And then,
yeah.
but
Did you have to get a new
no,
one?
I actually figured out a way to make it work for this week. But I am gonna go look for a new clamp, because that's the only thing that
Oh,
broke.
that's good.
It's just the clamp that cracked, and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
bad
When
timing.
stuff doesn't go the way you want, it's like, yeah, bad timing.
Like you could have done it last week or next week. Not this week.
You got stuff to do this week.
Sorry about that, ladies. This has been a
All
day.
right.
Let me tell you. It's just ridiculous.
You're good. No one's even gonna
I
know
know
that
I'm
happened.
making
I'm
so
gonna
much
clip
work for
all
you
that out.
today.
So,
I know.
yes, you are, but it's okay. So, you within as the chair on the committee, do you kind of help out, the kids who are interested in finding sports, or what is your kind of role within that?
So my role is pretty much um, making the board, like, can't think of the word, making the board focused on doing stuff, as well as setting subcommittees for if I need a form filled out, or we need information to um, to get to the higher like umbrella, because we're like under an umbrella. So just all that, but also anytime I see anybody in a wheelchair, or with a prosthetic, or with any disabilities, I'm like, I stop them. I'm like, hey, have you thought about adaptive sports? They look at me like I have two heads. I'm like, no, seriously, I'm serious. We need more athletes, especially in this area. So you want to do it? And I used to work at a retail department store, and I would have customers they mistakenly mention that they have a child with a disability, and I'm like, and I forget all about the transaction. And I'm like, you know what? Forget. I'm gonna scan all your stuff. Have your child ever thought about doctor support? And they're like, yeah, maybe. I'm like, no, seriously, have they? Because it, like I said, it changed at fuck. I've known it all my life since I was 5. So, and I've had teammates who found it later on, and then they say they regret not finding it out earlier. Um, and then they also get mad at their doctors who don't tell them about it. And I had a teammate, we had the same doctor, and I'm like, he didn't tell you.
I have a question for you on that.
Okay.
So, just as a mom of 3 kids and just doing sports in general is ridiculously expensive. And Randy knows that as well. Her kids are all in sports and she as well. So, is there, because I would think that that might be, is it expensive? Like, and are there programs to help people? Like, because I really feel like this is an important thing to get out to people.
It is expensive if you do it on your own. Like if you're an independent athlete, you have to buy the chair, because we use racing chairs, so they're like different chairs. Um, and then you have field chairs, and then you have, if you want to go to nationals, you have to pay for the hotel, you have to pay the meet fee, all of that. And then as well as if you want to go to other meets in the area, but you live like an hour away, you do have to get the hotel. But if you're a part of like a team or a program, sometimes the program will help with the financials. The program that I was a part of, we were under a hospital, so they were able to help out financially, but you still had to put in a certain amount for nationals. But they had chairs and field chairs for us. We didn't have to buy our own unless we really wanted to do it like for for me, I now have a field chair that I got for myself, but I got it through a grant. So there are grants out there for adaptive equipment, but it is very
Yeah, I can
expensive.
imagine.
But anything disability related is
Sure.
expensive,
Yeah.
especially especially like mobility stuff and mobility aids. Like I just got a new wheelchair, expensive, and I got a new like motor for it. That was more expensive than the actual chair. Um, and but yeah, adaptive sports equipment can be expensive, and it can be um for again because there's also fees to do different
Sure.
events. But there are grants, and then there are programs that you can join. That some of that will be taken off of you as an athlete. As an adult athlete, it is a little harder. There aren't as many adult sport programs. My goal is to start one in the area. That's been our goal for years, but no one wants like the responsibility of doing it. Um, and we do have one adult, but it's just an expansion of their juniors team. Um, that's what we wanted to do, but but again, no one wanted the heartache of the. Um, they want to do it. It's just how many people will come back to
Sure.
do it as well. Because sometimes when people are done with junior sports, that's it. They're done. They say that's it because they just did it for fun. I did it for fun, but I still like enjoy doing it. I mean, track I did not do for fun, but all the other ones I did for fun. But
I just love the fact that you've gone through all this adversity at a very young age, and your confidence and your ability to just approach people and be like, hey, are you in adaptive sports, and like have those conversations because you know those kids need someone to have those conversations for them. They can't, if they don't know about it, they're not going to be able to ask about it, and then they see all the kids around them doing sports and the seclusion that they feel, and you're like, nope, let's get out there, let's reach people.
yes, that's why it's also important for Paralympics to get more media coverage because people still didn't know that the Paralympics were on because they didn't promote it as much as, say, the Olympics. And I'm like, and I was on Twitter. Yes, I still call it Twitter. I refuse calling it that other thing. Um, but I was on Twitter complaining about the coverage, and I had people saying, but it's more coverage than last time. Like, I mean, it is more coverage, but their promotion this year stunk. Like, I remember seeing more promoting for the Paralympics 4 years ago than I saw this year. And I'm like trying to prove to them, like, yeah, they may have more coverage, but the actual promotion of it was terrible. The marketing of it was not there. And how do the kids know that this is happening if you're not marketing it better? And if we had more, like, if ESPN covered more adaptive sports, or the local news did more coverage of adaptive sports, then these kids will see themselves on the screen and be like, oh, there are things I could do out there. And that's the main problem, that there's not as much representation in the media, for the disabled and adaptive sports. And if there is, media representation, is more, it's the on stories, it's like they overcame their disability. I'm like, yes, it's great that they overcame their disability, but it's also important to know that you can live happily with a disability. Because a lot of the stories that you see that come out of Hollywood, which I'm very big in, it's like they can't be happy unless they have a caregiver. They can't be happy because it's like, it's just, it like really irks me and the disability community of what comes out of Hollywood. It's like, it's just,
Unrealistic in real life.
Well, so
yes,
Bluey, I don't know if you watch Bluey. It's a kids movie, so I don't know. But
I've
it
heard a
is
lot of
it's a
people talk about it.
yeah, and the dad is watching, and it's like an Olympic setting to where it's they're competing on a very high level, and the dad in the show is watching a race, and he's in a wheelchair, the guy that he's watching, and he's like so excited about watching this, and so there are things like in that area that I have seen, but you're right. Other than that, and that stuff doesn't necessarily reach people, I don't feel like, who don't have family members or people in their lives that are disabled. But I do think that you're right. Like, it's not out there as much.
Yeah, and even parents are like, what can I do with my, what, and I see posts on Facebook like, what can I do with my disabled, like, are there things, I'm like, and we're like, yes, there's adaptive sports. You can either go into the community and see if there's a program near you, or start one yourself. Because I'm sure your child,
And can they just Google it? Like, how do they, if someone was interested in finding one in their area, can they Google it? Is there like Facebook groups?
there's Facebook groups that people can, because there is a adaptive sports Facebook group, and people do ask if there's any, and then we have officials from everywhere that are like top in there. Like, there's a swimming official that always gets on there, like, because he knows where everything is, and he'll always be like, contact this person, contact this person, contact this person. But there's also, you can Google it, but there's also, like, my program, our programs are under like the Move United, which is a massive adaptive sports, program. It used to be separated into two: Adaptive Sports USA, Disabled Sports USA. So then they combined it to create Move United. They have a lot of resources on their website of, adaptive sporting programs. And again, if there isn't any in their area, Move United also has resources on how to start one, which is also important. Because if there isn't one in the area, then
And I would think that you, in these, like in
not.
the adaptive sports, do you need volunteers or people to help that aren't disabled to help? I mean, I'm completely ignorant about this, so I'm sorry, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, do they need people to help with
Yes,
helping them get in the different chairs, or I don't, whatever? And so that would be something too that people could volunteer.
yeah, we're always looking for volunteers at sporting events. Always, it's for some reason it's very hard to get volunteers, but we're always looking for volunteers, and majority of the coaches aren't disabled. They just happen, they work. A lot of the coaches either have children who are disabled. Like my track coach, his daughter was a Paralympian, and she came up through my junior sports team, and he became the track coach. He's the one that wanted me to stick with track, and everybody, literally everybody, told him she's done with track. It's done. And but yeah, volunteers and also other coaches are usually like physical therapists and occupational therapists. Um, but yeah, we're always looking for volunteers everywhere, at nationals, at uh, local sporting events, or even just coming out to practices to learn about it. And that's also a way that we do get new coaches and new officials, is through volunteering, because we've had volunteers become like officials and coaches. And
Well, I imagine they fall in love with the community, right? They're like, okay, I'm going to come here, I'm going to volunteer this time, and then they see the camaraderie between you guys and, you know, everyone else who's competing, and they're like, I want to be a part of this.
yes, and I always like, I usually, when I was younger, I used to mess with the volunteers. Like the volunteers were our buddies, and so I would always mess with them and make sure they come back. I'm like, you're coming back next year, right? And they're like, do we? They would jokingly be like, do we have to? I'm like, yeah, you do. You're coming back next year. And so it's always good to always socialize, not just among our teammates and competitors, but if we want the volunteers to keep coming back, we have to socialize with them and make sure they're involved. Because I probably annoyed a lot of them, but I don't care.
I would think that just speaking from both, I mean, anybody who has had any sort of like a sports injury, like that can set you back not only physically but mentally as well. And so I can just imagine that having a disability is so much exasperated from that. And so the sports one is so good for your mental health, like just really anybody, any kind of activity, exercise, or whatever is so good for your mental health. But I love that you said that interacting with the non-disabled people, you know, the people that are volunteers or whatever, like I would think that would be so good for, yeah, just more mental health and building community and helping, you know, integrate people from building confidence and all that good stuff.
Yes, it's also great because it might have been their first time seeing adaptive sports or even seeing a disabled person. And it's important to be like, we're here. We're here doing exactly what you do, but differently. And we're not here to like inspire you to go walk down the street. Because a lot of people, I will say, a lot of people do come up to disabled people and say, you know, it's so inspiring to see you here, and I could just be shopping, like just doing a normal everyday thing, and I'm like, okay, thanks, you're welcome. But doing adaptive sports, that like that's where the main inspiration should be coming from, towards other
Well,
disabled people, as well as creating more social awareness and social acceptance of one another. So that was always my big thing.
I think that you know, just having the more conversations about this kind of stuff, right? Like, I feel like people are always afraid to ask, well, how do you want me to treat you? How is there like this expectation of, you know, no one talks about it. They just assume things, and that's where a lot of people kind of run into stuff. It's like, let's have this conversation of like, and I'm sure it's different for every disabled person, but like, how would you like to be treated? Having those conversations of like, okay, how would that make you feel when someone comes up to you and you're like, I'm so glad you're out. You're inspiring me just being out shopping. How does that make you feel? It makes you feel like crap, probably.
It does, because I'm just shopping. I'm like, I'm just doing what you're doing. And even when I was in college, I had someone come up to me and be like, seeing you here going to school, it makes me want to continue. And I'm just sitting there, like waiting for my ride. And it's like, you're welcome, but why? I'm like, you should just be going to school because you want to go to school, not because I'm like, would you? The question is, I always say this: would you say that to a person that's not in a wheelchair? Would you have said that to that person over there who's sitting on the bench? Because
That's a good piece right
they're
there,
doing
Caitlin.
exactly the same thing I'm doing. What's different
The chair is
about
just different.
me sitting here? Yeah, like
Yeah.
why is sitting in a wheelchair different than that person sitting over there in a bench? Would you have said what you just said to me to that person?
Yeah, that's a good thing to like for anyone who is not used to being around someone who's disabled. Just ask yourself that question before you let whatever's about to come out of your mouth come out of your mouth. Would you say this to a non-disabled person?
Yes, because I've had a couple experiences at my workplace, and like one person, I was done for the day, so I was on my way out, and this one random person was like talking to someone that was like way over there, and then she like abruptly stopped in the middle of the store and was like, "Oh my god, what happened to you?" And I looked around like, "Oh, she's talking to me." I'm like, "I don't know." "Oh, this? The wheelchair?" I'm like, spinal cord injury? Because I never have a problem explaining my disability because it's education. But then she was like, then she kept going on like, "Oh, you have a disease? Were you in a car crash?" And I'm like, "No, I just had complications and surgeries and blah, 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 blah." And she kept going on and on. I'm like, "I had a long day. Can I just go home? Like, can I
Yeah.
just go home? I
Yeah,
had a
I think
long
that people need
day."
to realize that you do not have a victim mentality. At least, I mean, I think all of us struggle with a victim mentality at some, you know, time in our life of some shit that we're going through. But in general, you're out there living your life just like everybody else is. You know, you don't have this victim mentality. You're just like, hey, I'm just as capable and strong and beautiful and wonderful and smart as the next person. So don't give me that victim
Like,
mentality.
yeah, like, I would have been totally fine if she, like, stopped and asked me, like, the question. But it was the way she went about it. It was like, are you really just stopping in the middle of the store, yelling out in the middle of the store, what happened? What happened to you? I'm like, that's a little off putting. Like, that's, and I don't think she knew I was where I worked there, but that's besides the point. Because I think she did see me again, and I feel like I knew her after seeing her. I'm like, oh no, it's her again. But ever since then, she like stayed quiet. I'm like,
With your books and stuff like that, are you able to write in situations like this? Do you use that as inspiration whatsoever to like have these conflicting scenes where it's like someone who says something and doesn't realize excuse me what they're saying or how they're coming off? I feel like you have a lot of ammo of like building out those people pretty well.
I might in future books, because again, the ones that I wrote have no disabled characters, and I'm still waiting for that one.
I'm thinking, and it doesn't even have to be those kind of conversations, just like someone saying something abrasive to any
Yeah,
situation, you have the just almost kind of, I don't want to use the word ignorant, but like not informed conversation. Like they're just talking to talk.
yeah, I might throw in like a conversation like that. Actually, actually, that might actually work. That actually might work well for a thing I'm working on that I've been working on for like 5 years. Um,
You have an
Yeah, you have
arsenal.
all this
You
inside
have an
knowledge of,
arsenal.
yeah.
I do. So I actually might work that
You
in.
should,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Yep. I love when authors, when I can tell that what their characters are going through, it feels very personable. It feels like this is very well fleshed out. It's not the typical, back and forth conversation dialogue that you're expecting. It's the hand movement, it's the eyebrow raises, it's the little subtle things of like how these conversations are going. It's how that conversation is making you feel, or how you're glaring at them, or just whatever. There's all the subtle things that make it so real.
Yes, yeah. I actually did think about something like this a few days ago to input in one of the books, but now I'm actually liking the idea more and more. So
Inspiration can come from
yes,
anywhere.
yes, it can. It can.
So you pursued traditional publishing to start off with, correct?
Yes, I did.
How did that go for you, and what led you to self-publishing?
So I think it was I can't remember when, um, but I was starting to do some query letters and all that nonsense that we have to do to like get agencies and stuff. So I just like was sending them out and out, and I would get some replies, some non-replies, but it was just tiring of like doing it over and over and over again and never getting like a maybe or an explanation. So, and for whatever reason, I was very against self-publishing. So I went this way first. But then after a while, I'm like, all right, you know what? Pause on this, trying the traditional way. Maybe I do some more research on the self-publishing, and then I realized majority of the authors that I now read are self-published authors, and I'm like, oh, you know what? Forget the traditional. Leave that behind and go with self-publishing. And I learned all the ins and outs about it. And I'm like, oh, it's a lot easier than I thought 5 years ago. So I think that was my mindset, that it was more difficult to do the self-publishing. But then once I got into it, I'm like, why was I so against this? Because it's really
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with just what we've heard, right? We don't really have an understanding of what self-publishing means whenever you're just like, I want to publish a book. Everyone in their mind is like, oh, that means you're going to go through a publishing agency, you're going to go through a traditional house. That is just the steps. And then you hear self-publishing and you're like, oh, that was that, really knocked off book that I saw at the store. That's got to be self-publishing. And in reality, that was probably a traditional
yes,
published book.
yeah, the best. I found that like the best writers are the self-published ones, and I'm like, oh, okay, I was wrong.
Now, you actually went a little bit further than just self-publishing. You started helping other authors, indie authors, and you developed your own publishing house?
I tried. I was
Gotcha.
That was my in between from traditional to self-publishing. I was thinking, if I'm having this much trouble, then other authors are probably having the same trouble. So why not start my own? I spent like 2 or 3 years trying to like put it all together, but it was just not sticking. Um, the numbers were just like not working in my favor. So I'm like, you know what? Scratch that too and just focus on me at the moment. But there's no saying that it might come back
Sure.
around later. Um, but yeah, it was a headache. I'm like I
Yeah.
I'm like, no, let me just focus on self publishing and just worry about that right now. Um, like if people have questions, I'm more than open to like answer. I don't know everything yet, but it's still good to still give help to a very new self-published author, because it's a hard world to get into. But it's easy to do as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think that as we go through it ourselves, we do develop this like sense of understanding of the struggles that all the other indie authors are going through because we've been there. And that's exactly one of the reasons why I started doing what I'm doing here is because giving a platform for other people to talk about their books and their, their world that they've developed, but also just letting the world meet you. Like I've seen so many podcasts where it's like, let's talk about the book, but I also want to recognize that there's a human behind those books. There's a person with their own personal stories and struggles, and that's why I did what I've done.
Yeah, when I saw that you came up with this, I'm like, ooh, I want to be there. Let's get involved there because, I mean, it is important to learn about the person behind the name or the book or the story because it's not just putting words down on paper. It's just not like that simple. There's more to it than a lot of people may think, and the person behind the book does have stories to tell that aren't in the book.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because where did that character come from? Like, your characters are from a passion that you had when you were young, and now everyone gets to know where that story came from.
Yep, my High School Musical fanatic. That's deep. That's still in me, and she always tries to come out, and I'm like, settle, settle down, because it when she comes out, it gets just, it's a little, it's hard. Just like the sports
Yeah.
fan in me, you don't want that one, her to come out either, because it.
So through your eyes, love in the game. Is that the first book in the series? Now, did you kind of do just like High School Musical, where it's part one and part two, and then your books went along with that?
Well, these are actually all standalones. Um,
Oh,
yeah, they're standalone. So they, the only one that like really relates to like High School Musical was Chat Room Love, because that was like I didn't really change much. He's the basketball player. She's the like um the geek, the nerd, the smart one. I mean, in Through Your Eyes, it's the same story as well, but they're done differently. Um, but I've had reviewers say, "Chat, no wait, maybe it was Through Your Eyes. Through Your Eyes is more like High School Musical. Chat and Love, it's because she moved to town and gets the eye of the the star athlete, and he doesn't know if he can really be friends with her because of her being the smart one, the one in the books, which is Troy and Gabriella. And so they go through that, but it's a little darker because she has like issues at home. Um, it's not whether he wants to be a musical theater person or not. It's more about if he wants to be friend, wants to come out and be friends with her in public, and have her dealing with whatever drama she's going home at home. Chat room love is they are on opposite sides of the country, and they meet in the chat room. But it's still the sort of same story. He's the jock, she's the um, nerd, but it's different. And then Love in the Game is completely different than High School Musical. I just use the characters. It's more hockey related, and she's works at the diner. So it's more like Cinderella story meets High School Musical meets hockey meets something else I can't think of.
What are the tropes other than like the musical thing? Like, what would you say are the main tropes of this new book that you have?
My first book, which had nothing to do with High School Musical, was like a summer romance. I
Are
don't
they
really
spicy or just so
sports.
we can let our
They are clean. Through Your Eyes does touch on a little spice. Um, but it's closed. They're all closed doors. So, but it is Three Rise is more like it started open, but it goes closed. And I've used Three Rise as sort of my transition book because I am going to be going into more of the open door romances. But I wanted to get like these are like more young adult. Loving the game because of the age of the characters are more on the adult side of things, but all the other ones are definitely young adult. Three Rise is young adult, but not. I don't want to say it's dark young adult because it's still clean young adult, but it's more. She deals with more
Yeah.
adult stuff in that one, but it's still not adult because of the
Yeah.
character. The character age
Right.
rules of young adult, new adult, adult, the differentiation.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, all that stuff is
Like,
so like whenever I was like, wait a minute, I have to come up with the genre of my book. I also have to come up with the tropes and categorize it in like new age, young adult, contemporary. Like what? What
yeah,
is all this?
when I first like published my first one, The Silent Summer, I'm like, what are they talking about? I have to put this in categories? I don't know. It's a summer romance. What am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah.
That's what I know. That's what it
You're like, you
is.
guys read it and tell
Like,
me.
that's what it is. I'm like, and I almost asked my editor, be like, so what are the tropes? You tell me what this book is about. I just wrote it.
That's awesome.
But I like, but but for my future books, I kind of do know the tropes better than the ones I have out now. I'm just like, I don't know, just read it.
Yeah, that's
Just
another thing too, is like just if you want to write a book, just start writing it. Like all this other stuff, you will learn as you go. And if you're as long as you're not just wanting to do like a one and done, you get better. You
yes,
understand like how the tropes are gonna happen, you understand how the market works, you understand what the readers want. It just gets easier the more you do
yeah.
it.
I'm just like, these books were just my get them out there, get me in my name and on a book. Especially the first one. Three Rise I took a little bit more serious, but now the real fun begins. Now I'm like, oh,
Yeah, because you're already planning your next
yes.
thing that's coming out. You want to tell us a little bit about that, or are you kind of just keeping it under
I mean, I
wraps?
am sort of keeping it under wraps, but I can say it's more, again, my High School Musical fan fiction people are going to be very upset with me because I originally was not going to, I was done with my fan fiction stuff. I was just going to leave whatever's left on there. Because I was working on something else, but it's taking a lot longer than I thought. And I'm like, I want to publish something, so I need to publish something. So, so what I'm gonna be doing is a four series. It's a novelette series. So like, it's not it's not as long, not as short as short story or not as long as novels. It's like right in between. And they are gonna be open door, spicy, um, and so it is. And I have them on under High School Musical, of course. So that's why I'm like, it's so easy to do these because they were already done. I just had to change the names and sports sometime because I know people are like, oh, here she goes again. Um, and where they met, not just on the rooftop all the time, like Troy and Gabrielle was on the rooftop. Um, but uh, but these are gonna be. I'm more. I'm now more into the open door, new adult romances now. And I'm not saying I'm never gonna do another young adult because I do have a series in mind, but that's like way down. But so it's like a four-part series following the same two characters, and it's basically, I can say the title because the title is out there. It's just not, and no one's gonna look for it. Only my High School Musical fan fiction people know what it is. But and I'm also gonna put it on my Patreon. So It's everyone says goodbye, they say hello. I might change it, I don't know. It's just basically it's their senior year. It's time to say goodbye to different things and they don't want to. So basically the first one is basically it was his last it was basketball but it's now football. Um and he's basically it's his last football game and she's tired of everyone saying it's the last thing. So she like shows up and says and they're not together, they don't like each other, actually. Um, but they will at the end of that. So because she's like, no, this is gonna be the beginning of something instead of the ending of something. So that's pretty much
I love that.
so then they keep so every last that they do is really a beginning of their relationship, and it's
Nice.
open door.
So if anyone wants to find what you have out already or wants to connect with you and follow you through your social medias, how do they do that?
I am everywhere. I am on Twitter, Instagram. I don't really do much marketing on Twitter as much as I used to. Twitter has just become my tantrum of baseball, football, the sports stuff, and but Twitter, Instagram, Threads. I'm on. I have a Facebook public page for my author. What else am I on? I'm on
TikTok.
YouTube. So for I am on TikTok too. I don't really do much on.
What is your handles there? Are they all generally kind of the same?
They're all generally the same. It's C Girlic. YouTube pissed me off because apparently somebody else already has C Girlic, and I'm like, who else has this name? Who else used it? And I went to that channel, and there's nothing on that channel. And I know it's not me
Yeah.
because I used the only other email I had from my High School Musical fan page, so I know it's not me. Every other email that I use was for the High School Musical YouTube pages. So it's not me. So for YouTube, it's the C Girlic. And then I think everything else is C. No, Facebook is writer Caitlin Goerlich, but I might change it.
If they search your name, they
But
should
right
be able
now,
to
that's what
find
it
it.
is. Yeah, I'm everywhere. I'm I'm a social
Awesome.
media person. I'm better now. I used to have the Twitter and the Facebook tabs open like 24/7. Now I don't have them open unless I have to go on. But my phone is always on Facebook or Instagram, so that's a problem. More Instagram, more Instagram.
Yeah, yeah. They're definitely fun platforms to connect. All right. Well, I think
Yeah.
you are absolutely amazing. I'm so excited to take a look at your books. This is a great message to get out there to people. I am super excited about publishing this and making sure, we can do our part to raise some awareness on our end. Do you have any last words to anyone who is listening and has, maybe a disability or the desire to get into writing and maybe they came from fan fiction?
So if you're a disabled person, whether you're young, old, whatever your age is, or if you're a parent with a disabled child, if you want more information, you can contact me, or again, go to the Movie United page, website. All the resources are there. It's very important. Again, adaptive sports is very important for everyone, whether you are the athlete or you're the coach or the parent. Um, Also, go tell NBC to do better promoting the Paralympics, especially since they're going to be in LA next in the summer, um, as well the winter. But really, I feel like they do better promoting the winter Paralympics, but we need the summer to get the same. Um, and if you're from fan fiction, don't be afraid to take your stuff off fan fiction when you have to publish in a book. Yes, there's going to be angry people. Yes, just let it go. It's just, they'll understand eventually, and they'll like that they have it in physical form. And if you're getting into writing, just have fun writing, because that's where it all comes from. And find a good muse, because High School Musical worked for me. It may work for you, or you can find another movie, show, or anything that just gives you that, okay, I'm gonna write that.
That's amazing.
I love it.
Yes,
That's a great message. Find your muse.
it
There's your
is.
sticker, Caitlin. All right. Well, it was fantastic meeting you. This was a fun episode. I loved learning everything I did, and I hope the
Yes.
listeners get to learn as much as I did.
And thank you for having me. This was fun.
Have a great day.
Bye, guys. See you on the next episode of L3. Hey, guys. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Lemon's Listening Library. Remember, every story has a journey, and every journey deserves to be heard. Keep reading, keep writing, and keep listening.